It's the Too Close for Comfort podcast, the unofficial podcast of Too Close for Comfort. We could probably be the official one if we actually went through the effort of trying to contact anybody involved with the show, but we just like to keep things off the grid and underground. It's Too Close for Podcast. It's the 14th episode. We're talking about episode 14 from season 1 today. First aired February 24th, 1981. Huey. Huey is the episode title. First time the episode title is a character's name.
That is true. So, yet again, we find ourselves in the kitchen. But this time, there's a little bit of a twist. It's not breakfast. It is evening time. It's dinner. And Henry's upset and he's not able to eat his dinner. Because Jackie has just got a job offer in New York City. She's going to do some of her art, or they didn't really even say what the offer was, did they?
Not really.
Henry has no tolerance for this because he knows what happens in New York City, and he can imagine what's going to happen to his daughter. Have you ever seen...
They live in San Francisco. Now, I know it's not as populated, but they already live in a big city. What's the difference in another big city?
You ever see The Warriors? Well, that's what could happen to her.
Well, she's in The Warriors.
Exactly.
I think that's the first time we've mentioned that.
That's what could happen to Jackie in New York City. She could end up being a prostitute in the streets, just trying to make some money. Who was she hanging out with? The orphans?
Yeah, the orphans.
The orphans.
If you've not seen The Warriors and you're Too Close for Comfort fanatic, you really, really owe it to yourself to watch Deborah Van Valkenburg's first movie, The Warriors. But anyway...
So, Muriel tells Henry, well, it's just a 5-hour flight, 5 hours away from San Francisco to New York City, and we could go there and visit. They have the museums and all the culture and stage shows, Broadway. But Henry's still pretty, he's like, yeah, that sounds good, but my daughter will not be here anymore. So then, there's a knock on the door, and it's Henry's dad, Huey. He shows up. He's gotten kicked out of the retirement home he's been staying in, and it's the 5th time he's been kicked out of retirement homes for messing around with women.
And it's only been 3 years this has happened. 5th time in 3 years he's been kicked out.
I didn't catch that, but that sounds about right. And Muriel is just like, "What'd you do this time?" Because Muriel's heard all these stories, and she seems like they kind of like a titillator. Like she's not judging. It's like, "What'd you do this time?" Henry is disgusted by the whole thing because he knows what a lech, or what would you call it? Henry is certainly disgusted by his father's behavior. How would you describe it?
He thinks that Huey is a womanizer, but as we learn as the episode goes on, that's not really so much the case.
Now
He's just more of a ladies' man. He's not so much disrespectful. He just hooks up a lot.
And this time, he got kicked out because he was messing around with a woman in a wheelchair. Henry's fed up with this and disgusted. The idea of him with a woman in a wheelchair, they go into great lengths in describing how the whole wheelchair thing would work with Huey. And Huey is like 6'6", 6'8". He's huge. He's a huge man. Also, we learn that Huey is 75 years old. So then he's like, "Oh, we don't have time to talk about this. I just want to go to bed." So they set up Huey in the spare bedroom, which used to be the girls' bedroom, right off from the main bedroom.
They've had 14 episodes to do something with that spare room, and they didn't.
Exactly, and so now Huey's crashing in there. So, boom, the next morning at breakfast, once again in the kitchen. A lot of this show takes place in the kitchen, but you already know that.
Well, it's one of the handful of sets. We have the living room, the kitchen, downstairs, and the bedroom.
That's true.
That's pretty much everything. There's, we occasionally go outside.
We've never seen the girls' bedroom or their kitchen.
Nope.
Never.
We know where they're at, but we just don't see it.
We could diagram it. We're going to do that someday.
Behind the back.
We're going to get someday we're going to have the greatest YouTube page.
That house is very TARDIS-like. The inside seems so much bigger than the outside of the house they show you in the intro.
That is true. It's a physical house that still exists in San Francisco.
Yeah.
A tourist attraction, I would think. Muriel and Henry are discussing Huey moving into the downstairs or the spare bedroom. Once Jackie leaves, there's going to be extra space because Jackie is going to move to New York City. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah, she's got to hook back up with the orphans.
Exactly. Huey, Sarah, and Jackie come back from a run. They've been jogging, and the girls are winded, but Huey's not. He's not winded at all. He says, that's because you were talking the whole time and I was listening. But he's 75, and he's 20, not even 20-something. Jackie's 20-something. But Sarah, 19? She's winded. These girls will take a taxi to the bus stop. That's what we've learned from all these girls. They have no stamina, and they don't like to run. And Jackie talks to her grandfather about moving to New York City, and he gives her the advice to believe in herself. And then Jackie tells her parents, "Grandpa helped me decide I'm moving to New York City. I'm moving to New York." Into Act 1. Now that was 10 minutes and 30 seconds. I don't know how long it took us to record that. Later, Huey is talking about how expensive it is to rent an apartment, and Sarah tells him he can move downstairs when she moves back upstairs because Jackie is going to New York City. And Huey says he'll never live with Henry, and he tells Sarah she should just get a new roommate. And Henry tells him to stop meddling in his family's affairs because if it wasn't for him, Jackie wouldn't be moving to New York City in the first place.
That's also convenient.
So the two of them argue. Huey tells Henry that he's always played it safe. And that's his problem. He's always played it safe and done the easy thing all his life. He could have been a great artist if he'd applied himself, but he'd rather draw these ridiculous cartoons. And he made a really weird face like it's just despicable. So that's probably why Henry always doubts himself in his art, if you can call it that. So Henry tells him that he never helped him. That's nice to hear that, Dad. I wish you'd have told me that a long time ago. All he ever did was yell at him. And so Huey tells him not to worry, because he's leaving and he won't have to listen to him anymore. So cut to a new scene. Well, that was into Act 2 right there. So Act 3.
So everything's looking its most dire right now.
Muriel asks Henry why Huey is packing his bags. And Henry says he doesn't know because Huey's not talking to him. And he's stressed out about the whole thing, because Jackie is moving. And his dad won't talk to him. He's really stressed. I don't know if he's old yet. So the girls show up, and Jackie's excited about her plans to move to New York City when Huey comes out and he's got his luggage. And Jackie asks where he's going, and he says he doesn't know, and tells them all goodbye. He tells everyone goodbye but Henry.
Yeah, total guilt trip.
Yeah, these two have issues. And Henry says that he would say goodbye to Huey, but that's exactly what Huey wants, right? He doesn't want to say goodbye to him, so he's not going to say goodbye because his dad doesn't want to say goodbye to him. But then the girls, all the women convince him that, hey, this might be the last time you ever see your dad. So then Henry, he goes up and he tells his father he loves him. And they hug it out. Then the doorbell rings, and two elderly women, known as Nadine and Cassie, show up. Now, one of these women, Nadine, was the one in the wheelchair from before, and they've been sent by the nursing home or the retirement home to bring him back because it's so boring now that he's left. And they say they've been on a hunger strike. One of them lost 7 pounds and doesn't have heartburn anymore. So Huey is convinced, and he's like, yeah, these people love me and I need to go back there. So he leaves with the old ladies, and they're carrying his bags. And Henry's like, whoa, you letting these women carry your bags? And he's like, they just want something to do at this age. Leave me alone. I know what's going on. I'm 75. And Henry's just like, yeah, okay, Dad. So they leave, and boom, cut to a new scene. Now it's 3:03 in the morning, and the doorbell rings once again. Henry and Muriel
Let me say one thing about that last scene before we talk about the final scene of the episode. I feel that's where you see that Huey's not really some womanizer. They want to do this stuff for him. They enjoy being around Huey. He's the life of the party. Of course, Henry doesn't see it that way because that's Dad. So that's where, you get a nice, fuller story arc with Huey there.
Enriches everyone's life because he has so much life in him. He makes that retirement home worth living.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, we get this. We think the episode's over, but no, we got one more storyline to
end it right there. We could have ended it right there.
We could have, but we got one more loose thread here. Will Jackie go to New York?
All right, so now it's 3:03 in the morning, 3 a.m. The doorbell rings. Henry and Muriel are asleep. Henry gets up. He staggers to answer the door. Jackie comes into the bedroom and tells him that she's decided not to go to New York. Everyone hugs. The end.
Yeah, she can't leave the show already. We're only 14 episodes in.
She realized her grandpa told her not to play it safe. Played it safe by going back to the retirement home when he could have just went out on his own and done his own thing. Plus, she didn't want to leave home anyway.
Exactly.
And you know what would happen to her? The orphans. They didn't treat her well.
Yeah.
She didn't want to go back. She didn't want any part of that.
I mean, they just went through all the trouble of getting their furniture back a few weeks ago, and now she's just going to leave?
Exactly. Plus, that bank thing is not a bad gig.
Yeah. Bank job's good money.
So that was episode 14.
Okay, so we had our guest star, Huey, who was Henry's father. See, H and H, but I guess it works because, yeah, Huey and Henry, and it's not like throwing every episode together. And we also had Huey's friends from the retirement community showed up.
Nadine and Cassie.
Cosmic Cal, referred to as that cartoon junk.
Oh, yeah.
More disparaging remarks about comic books.
Could have been a real artist.
Comic books have gotten a lot more respect lately, but they still get little jabs. People don't take it completely seriously. But back in 1981, Huey's generation, at least Huey, you can't say Huey speaks for his entire generation. It's wrong of me to say that. But Huey said, that cartoon junk. Or maybe he was just giving his son grief. Because he expects,
What was this, 1985?
81.
81, so minus 75, we could do the math. So yeah, back in his day, things
He
were
was
a lot
born in
different.
06, yeah.
A lot different.
Huey's world, completely different. Yeah. That cartoon junk. But, it's really that classic case of, well, if I tell my son he's doing awesome, he won't be motivated to keep going.
But he did say he thought he could have been like Rembrandt or that level of artist instead of just scribbling out stick figures or whatever in your cartoon.
He does a lot of scribbling with that glove, as we've seen.
That's true.
Now, as far as Henry's sweaters go, interesting this episode. I think this is the first episode to start with Henry wearing the sweater. It was the Notre Dame sweater. Also, another first in this episode involving sweaters. It's a 2-sweater episode. We don't get very many of those. Later in the episode, Henry switches to his USC sweater.
I totally missed that.
So that's a first. Who's not in this episode?
Rafkin's.
Well, yeah.
Mrs. Rafkin.
Who's usually there, who's not in this episode?
Monroe.
That's right. Monroe was absent once again. Not too many more times will that happen. I counted 2 instances of Henry pointing in this episode, because he likes to point at people. This was before, I guess, people started saying pointing is not polite. But Henry, or I should say Henry's generation, see, I can't say Henry speaks for his generation either, but Henry liked to point at people. Because he was kind of an angry guy sometimes. And then Monroe mellows him out as the show goes on. He's got a lot of anxiety. He never goes to therapy. Now, as far as the intro goes, we're back to the bridge intro, the long intro. This was the first appearance of Huey, as I discussed earlier. On a scale of 1 to 5, I give this one a 5. Because this is a definitive episode of the series, I think. This is one of those you have to see if you like this show. Now, as far as bizarreness, odd happenings, I could totally be wrong, but it sounded like at one point Henry called Huey instead of Dad. I could be wrong, but it certainly sounded.
I think you were saying Hugh.
Yeah, it's probably.
Or something. Hugh did this.
The stammer,
I think it was part of that, but you might be right.
What did we learn this week? Huey is the original pointer and the original stammerer. So now we know where. It's almost like Santa Claus. The old guy with the white hair. He's going ho ho ho.
He'd make a great Santa Claus.
And we also learned, you want to mess around with a lady in a wheelchair, make sure those brakes are set.
One to grow on.
And that's the one to grow on. Next week we'll be back with an almost equally classic episode, Centerfold, where an oversexed quarterback chooses Muriel to photograph him nude.
You can hear my show on Stitcher. Stitcher is radio on demand. Download the free app today. Listen anytime, anywhere.
Create custom playlists. Rate and review my show on Stitcher. And over 4 million car dashboards.
On demand and on the go. No downloading, no syncing, no wasted memory. Stream your favorite podcasts. Don't have Stitcher? Download it free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Store.